watching Channel 20 TV. Be with Channel 20 and let us make things better together.
Hello viewers, the moment we're talking in front of you, calendar shows the year 2020, month June. This is the year of pandemic, the year of heads up as well. The year of greatest learning, like thinking out of box, strategizing with plan A, B, and C. Don't compare yourself with any benchmark, rather create your own unique bench with standard mark. Like other countries, there is a significant impact of COVID-19 on Bangladesh, its people, and economy. Regardless COVID-19, in general, as an overall dimension, we will try to know, understand, and learn about Bangladesh economy. And for this, we've got with us tonight Dr. Debapriya Bhattacharya, economist and public policy analyst from Bangladesh. Let us all welcome Dr. Debapriya to our show. Sir, how are you today?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So how's your time going nowadays, especially in this COVID-19 period of time?
Well, like most of the world, we are all also interned in our homes. So it's almost the third month running that we are staying at home.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask you, do you have any specific learnings that COVID-19 has taught you so far that you'd like to share with our audience? Any specific learnings? It might be related with life, it might be related with the profession. Do you have any specific learnings that you'd like to share with our audience, please?
I think the current pandemic, what it has done is it has exposed all our strengths and weaknesses to the utmost in certain ways. So we see that to what extent we are capable as a society, as a nation, and even as a global humanity to deal with this kind of unprecedented, scourge, and how we are capable of protecting our innocent people from this kind of health hazard. This is definitely the one. And at the same time, it has also exposed all our inadequacies, that how our health system does not work adequately for the poorer section of the people, in fact, for anybody for that matter. Or how is our social protection system to provide people support when they are not working, and how the state can take charge of that on that. We can also see that how the world is shaped in these current circumstances, whether we are having free flow of trade in medical goods, on drugs, medicines, and if we are lucky and we do have a vaccine, whether we will be able to really trade them freely and at an affordable price. So I think there are lots of lessons that once this pandemic is over, how we are going to organize our economy, society, and our individual lives, that is something to be seen.
Right now, some people are getting panicked, they're nervous, but still, leaders are coming out, they're trying to give some confidence and boost to the normal people. As you know, being one of the pioneers of our country, a lot of people are watching you, they're trying to follow you up. What's the specific social message you'd like to share with them from your side as Dr. Debapriya?
Well, if you look at the leaders, the political leaders always want to instill trust and confidence within their constituency. They would like to give you confidence. They don't want you to panic, and they want you to follow what they are suggesting on those things. So that's all very fine. But there is also there is a fine line between those kind of trust, confidence building words and also the reality on the ground. So where people like us who are the policy analysts tries to bridge between those kind of aspirational objectives and the realities on the ground. And that is and through that process, what we try to do is that the actual interventions on the part of the state, on the part of the private sector, on the part of the non-government entities, to create an enabling environment so that those people who are suffering, they suffer a bit less and can come out of it much more faster.
Now, at this point in time, I would like to just ask you, what sort of dream you are having right now regarding Bangladesh? Due to COVID-19, Is it like your dream has been a little bit shaken up for Bangladesh, or still you're having the same dream as you used to have for Bangladesh?
I think what COVID-19 has done for me personally is that it reinforced my dreams, not it didn't shake me up. For
Mhm.
example, the dream for anybody, an economist student like us, is to provide for employment and income to all people in the country. That is one of the aspirational or most high ambition what we always have, that full employment for all our people, and so that they can earn enough in order to have a dignified life. So the COVID-19 has shown us that we need it much more than any time else in that way. The idea was that, the dream was that even if you cannot work, if you're physically challenged, if you're old, senior citizen of your child, so the society will take care of you. There will be a social protection system where you will not feel helpless. The society will take care of you. So this aspiration has got confirmed in the COVID-19 phase, that everybody needs a social protection. It is not only the poor people for whom we organize safety net programs, feed them, give them allowances, but it is also the emerging middle class, the lower middle class. They also need protection, because a certain shock can really take them down to below the poverty line. I think the COVID-19 has shown how important the health issue is, and that we need a universal health system which will provide health protections to all our citizens, particularly in the rural area, in the peri-urban areas, particularly to people with limited means, and that is very important. I think the COVID-19 has also shown that we need to take care of our environment in certain ways. How do we deal with our garbage? How do we deal with our medical waste and etc. And also with the climate change and everything else. If we don't do that, then the environment, the nature will take revenge on us. So this is something. So we had to be more environment friendly. That type of understanding has been reinforced through this COVID-19. So I think COVID-19 is essentially reinforced all the things which we have aspired for Bangladesh.
Mhm. Fair enough, as you said. But my question in this regards, you are one of the greatest economists of our country. There's no doubt about that. But I would like to ask you in general, what are the three measures that you'd like to consider whenever we are talking about to control the rate of inflation, regardless it's for Bangladesh or any other countries? What's your suggestion that a country must look at into while controlling the rate of inflation?
Well, at this very moment, inflation is not an issue, as you know, globally. We are, because of the downturn in the global economy, the trade is down, the investment is down, and the growth rate is down. So there is a dampened slackening in the demand side. So there is not much inflation issue. It is also true for countries like Bangladesh and many countries. Because of the fall in prices of the oil, it has also sobered up a bit more on that. So inflation, but the economists like us don't think that the inflation is the most important criteria through which we should be looking at the stability issue. Economic stability, macroeconomic stability is very important. As we all know, that there are three elements of that which we always follow as practicing economists. If we talk about inflation rate, yes, it is important. Then we look at the exchange rate, that whether our money is stable or not, on a national currency is stable or not. And third, that the interest rate, whether it is not too high, so that the borrowing does not become costly for the investors. So we look at these three things very closely. And at this very moment, if you look at the global issues and also the situation in the developing countries, inflation is not so much an issue at this moment. The interest rate is an issue, because investment will be if it becomes costlier in the post-COVID situation, it will be difficult. And those countries which suffer from balance of payment problem, current account deficit, and others, the exchange rate will be an issue. Thankfully for Bangladesh, these are not issue at this moment, because we have a low inflation at this moment. Our exchange rate is stable, because we have a good reserve, foreign exchange reserve. We can really back up our currency, national currency, with foreign exchange reserves. Interest rate, government is trying to bring it down, often with very directives to the banks to say that they should keep the interest rate at single digit, which is difficult for the banks, but there are attempts on that. So that's all. That's what I see, that the macroeconomic stability, for good or for bad, maybe by default, is stable at this very moment.
So you are also a very, very genius policy analyst. I would like to ask you, which situation do you support? Whenever people are getting a little bit good credibility in terms of their purchasing power with faster growth, but with bulk liabilities, or you support steady growth with less dependency? What's your stand as a policy?
Oh, I don't believe in growth to start with, because the growth-oriented whole idea is a very prehistoric idea. I think if you look at the economic theory and in the recent past practices of applied economics, it will show you that growth-oriented approach is not at all a tenable one, and particularly from sustainable development perspective. What is more important is that we have a much more balanced sectoral development, which will ensure employment, income, social protection, some kind of a predictability in the lives of the most left behind people in each of our countries. So the issue is that whether growth is important. That doesn't mean that I don't think growth is unimportant. Growth is important, but no less important is who actually benefits from the growth, what are the sources of this growth, and what we do with the growth outcome. That is more important for many of us. So what we think is that for each of our countries, we will have to work out a national strategy. And there is no one size fits all at all. It's very contextual. And then each of the countries will take a path where it can take care of its citizens, particularly those who are left behind, and nobody is pushed behind.
So, you know very well, we are proud of our RMG sector. There's no doubt about that. But in terms of the workers' rights, there are a lot of trade unions, there are a lot of groups over there. But at the same time, we must not forget the contribution of our farmers, the contribution from our agriculture. Are we equally vocal? Are we equally weighting the value for our agricultural economy? Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I think you're right. We have come to the agriculture, but let me first disagree with you one of your observations that we have a lot of trade unions there. We don't have trade unions over there. We at best have the Workers' Welfare Society. So the traditional trade union for human rights issues, or the right for bargaining agents for minimum wages and other things. So we still do not have those kind of institutions. That's a matter of the future. But your issue regarding agriculture is very correct. This is somewhere, particularly in the post-COVID-19, one needs to put attention to it. If you look at Bangladesh, when we got independent, one of the issues when people used to tease us about globally is that we will be the test case for the new Malthusian theory. That is, there will be so much of population that we are going to eat each other and create a balance in the economy. So that kind of a, heuristic thinking was there very much. Now, since that, in the last 50 years, Bangladesh has doubled its population from 75 million. You are more than 150 million now, with God's grace. And at the same time, during this period, we have trebled our food production 3 times. So when the population becomes twice, the food production becomes 3 times. So in that sense, we have really, thrown in response to the global community that we can do it. And we have shown that. And now our people really have, at least at the aggregate level, a certain kind of food security, which is important. May not be at the household level, because not everybody can buy. There may be a shortage in entitlement. That's the myth. But that is there. What is important now is and this will happen because of the Green Revolution, because of the biotechnology and water, seed, fertilizer, and all these things. What is important at this moment is to improve the productivity in agriculture. An improvement of productivity in agriculture has to happen more in the post-harvesting phase. And what we see that in the post-harvesting phase, for example, but on the leakages, the wastage in Bangladesh is 10%, whereas the global is acceptable rate is 3%. So we need to bring it down, and we need to also create less, labor intensity over there and more productive technological use. There was a time when people used to say that Bangladesh will not be able to use technologies, harvesters or tractors in Bangladesh because the plots are very small. Thankfully, technology has given us the answer. We now have more appropriate technology which can move around in smaller plots, and it can also sow, saplings. It can also, cut the harvest. It can also, tie them up, taking them to the warehouse, and then thrashing and etc. etc. So this is the place where we need to focus much more in the future. Thankfully, the government is also aware of that. They are also trying to respond with policy support and financial fiscal support in this area.
Yes, indeed, we really.
But if you allow me, I would just only add what is important in this case in order to sustain this, that the actual producers, the farmer has to benefit from this process. Quite often the market is not there to reward them with adequate market prices, incentive prices. So there is a mismatch quite often between the price which is being offered to the farmers and actually what is in the market. And here again, the government also has to be very, very careful, because it's a tightrope balancing between the producer's interest and the consumer's interest. Because the middle class wants the price of the rice to be stable and low, whereas we need to pay the incentive price to the farmers. So how do you balance this thing is a very challenging issue for any food minister.
Yes, indeed. And once the Portugal government is in the power. Now, I would like to ask you that how successfully are we combining the three forces, government, market, and society? And do you reckon it's important for the country like Bangladesh to combine these three forces, or you don't agree?
Yes, I think you are right. That's a right question, that we need to combine the three forces. Take the COVID issue at this moment. The COVID issue is it's a national tragedy. So if you want to fight the national tragedy, you will have to mobilize the nation. So the government alone cannot fight it. They will have to mobilize the private sector along with it, whether in the health sector, private sector, or in general, the entrepreneurs. They will have to bring in the non-government, non-state actors like the NGOs, and who have a great credentials in Bangladesh, the development NGOs. You will have to bring in also the social movements, the CBOs, the community-based organizations, because a lot of things are happening at the community level in terms of infection and also their deterrence. So that is the right thing to do. In fact, I would add that along with these three forces, the government, the private sector, and the non-government organization or social movements, I also think there is a role to play by the international development partners, because we live in a globalized world, and this is a thing which is this virus has a cross-border implication. It is no less important that we have international cooperation built in along with our national whole of society approach. So I strongly believe that we need to have a whole of society approach in this particular situation.
All right, Dr. Devapriya, do you still think that Bangladesh's financial sector is performing okay right now by considering the socio-economic factors, or you reckon we need to think something in a better way?
No, financial sector is okay would be an understatement of the century, because it is under serious threat, both internally and externally, in the sense, and I have said that the Bangladesh financial sector, the banking sector, is more like an orphan. Nobody is really looking after it. The oversight function to be provided by the central bank or the governing boards and others are failing in their duty, and as a result, we have what we have at this moment is high unreturned or the bad loans. We have liquidity challenges. We have the provisioning shortfalls in that way, and with quite a significant spread between the lending and borrowing rates. And in the recent past, people are really discouraged to put their deposits over there. So the health of the banking sector is not exactly very good. It has a serious governance issue from its board, which are quite often family dominated. Earlier, we used to think that these are problems of the state-owned banks. Now, the private sector banks, first, second, third generation, are equally infected. No less of a problem, maybe a more problem, is the non-banking financial institutions in the country. Number of them have closed down. they have become bankrupt, or the money have been stolen or taken abroad. So this is a serious issue. So, and I'm sorry that this state of affairs will not help us in terms of during the recovery period from COVID.
Mm-hmm. And now, I know people have talked a lot about the healthcare sector of Bangladesh, but regardless the current situation, don't you reckon that sometimes it's a miracle the country like Bangladesh, the way it's been fighting for vaccine issues, polio matters, community health services, still there are some good things and goodies maybe, but overall, from your honest opinion, what you reckon, how healthy is our health sector?
No, the health of the health sector is not good enough. It suffers from serious malnutrition, in the sense that malnutrition of the health sector is exposed by the fact that we spend less than 1% of our gross domestic product GDP to the health sector. Any countries of equable standing, even in the least developed countries in the world, they spend 2 to 3% on that. Ideally, we should at least have 7% spent over there. And so the health sector is under-invested in many ways. Bangladesh opted for more visible indicators of development. We went for mega projects like the big Padma Bridge, the metro rail, and other big, and the nuclear power plants, and etc. In the process, we may have neglected our softer sector, the health and education. So, and the unfortunate part of health is that over time, it has been not being able to spend the money which has been allocated to them, and even when spending the money, didn't do it exactly following the government's procurement rules and giving the best value for the money to their citizens. So overvalued purchases have been done. So so if you see Bangladesh at this moment, what has happened, that if you spend 100 taka for your health needs, so out of this 100 taka, 75 taka will be from your own pocket, and 25 taka will come from the government. And that is quite an untenable situation for poorer section of the society. This similar number, the comparable number in our subcontinent, let me quote some of them. For Bhutan, your off-pocket expenses are 13%. 87% will come from the government. You go to Pakistan, it will be 50% from the government and 50% from the people. And in case of India, it is 60 to 40. 60 from the own pockets and the 40. So Bangladesh remains in a very, very dire situation in terms of paying for their health service in the future. So this is an area which is, like it is going to be the most important sector for our investment in the post-COVID situation. We have built hospitals. Our community clinics at the very grassroots levels are very much there, but we didn't have adequate numbers of paramedics or the doctors or even medicine and the costly machineries which were imported from abroad were not put into proper use. So we have to do quite a lot over there.
So let me just try to understand a very simple way for our simple audience. You are saying that the percentage of allocation for health sector is supposed to be more higher. In fact, the WHO, they say it about 4% of the GDP. If I understand correctly, if you just look at the Bangladesh and its practices, we claim and we blame there's a nepotism, there's no proper usage of money. Therefore, are we going to support for more allocation? Or are we going to support for more proper implementation with less vestigious, less corruption? What should be our priority right now? Because more allocation may create the more chance of corruption as well.
I think you will have to do both. There are two parts of it. One part is the design, where you fund more. Other part is the delivery, where you stop corruptions and be more efficient. This is not an either-or situation. Mm-hmm. We will have to do both. And that is why what is important is not only putting in money, but also doing structural reforms and institutional reforms so that the accountability process is very much there. So the citizens can have a voice, the local government can have a voice regarding what is happening. And at the top level, there will be a sheer no tolerance, zero tolerance towards corruption and overpricing of procurements and other things over there. And disclosure, more accountability towards the citizens, and particularly community level involvement. These are some of the ways the world has tackled it. If others could do it, we will be able to do it too.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you look at about the stimulus package, all the world leaders from different countries, they came up in front of the public, they announced the stimulus package. Something happened with the Honorable Prime Minister Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina. She also came up in front of the public. She gave a statement and she announced the stimulus package. My question to you, Dr. Debapriya, what do you reckon, how beneficial, realistic, and effective this stimulus package is, which is announced by the Honorable PM?
I think the stimulus packages are in the up to a point right direction. You see, what needs to be done in a situation like this in a country like Bangladesh is that, and the Prime Minister set out the 4 objectives, which I find quite acceptable and quite proper. So the first one is that you improve the expenditure of the states, that state spends more. Second is that you provide incentives to the enterprises essentially through credit subsidy. Third is that you push in more liquidity into the system through a monetary policy, central bank, if necessary, through printing money. And fourth, that you expand the social safety net for the disadvantaged people. So all these 4 points are very correct. And in order to support each of these 4 points, the government has come up with different schemes over there. So you see, in case of the expenditures on the budget, wanted to expand that, the public expenditure ratio up to almost 18%. Whether they will be able to do it or not, that's another issue. But that was the aspiration. If you look at the incentives given to the enterprises, they're starting from the garments to all others, to small and medium enterprises. The interest subsidy is given is altogether almost 0.5% of the GDP over there. The recent budget has also expanded most of the ongoing social safety nets program, whether it is the widowed women, whether it is the senior citizens, whether it is people who are living in the remote places, and also the other groups of disadvantaged people. So although they didn't really increase their per person rate of allowances, but they have expanded the coverage in certain ways. On the fourth one, on the monetary policy and etc., the government is really, wanted to push in more money. They have already 70,000 crores of new taka have been pushed into the economy. The central bank has changed some of the procedural requirements for cash reserves ratio and statutory reserve ratio, so that, and have bought back the bonds which were available with the private sector earlier, or the institutional buyers, and to, as a result, to give more money into the system. Although the government may end up borrowing itself quite a lot to cover its fiscal deficit in the future. So I would say that all these issues together have put a package in front of us, but how do you really deliver it? That is another issue. There is a mismatch, as I said, between the design and the delivery. So the delivery issue is that there are institutional leakages. So even if the Prime Minister wants to deliver 2,500 taka to 500,000 people all over Bangladesh, these faceless, nameless people, we do not have an adequate database for that. And but you do that, but you find that there are unscrupulous people who are putting in, names against their own family members or close ones, and etc. And more importantly, but to cut that down, what is being done, Bangladesh is doing, I think, spectacular work in this area, is to use digital financial services, and to try and cut off the intermediaries and transfer the money straight to the people from the government exchequer. This is a huge undertaking. I think Bangladesh is possibly the biggest digital financial transaction place now, if you don't take into account India, China, or Nigeria for that matter. So it is a big place in that way. But even there are ways. Bengali intelligent, unscrupulous people can really find ways how to make money out of it by putting one telephone number against 100 people. But that's a matter of scrutiny and accountability, which we are coming around as we learn to play one intelligence against the other.
Yeah, there is always room for improvement. There's no doubt about it, even for Bangladesh, even for America, even for the world-class economic country. That's not the issue. But you're reckoning that, yes, whatever the initiatives taken by the Honorable Prime Minister, it's considerably well measured, well considered. My question relating to this, do you reckon the Bangladesh government has acted on time regarding this stimulus package, or you think they were in a hurry, or you think it was too early, or you think they were in a too rush, or you think no, it was on time?
No, I don't think the incentive package came out too late or too early. It came out just the time. But the problem is that the government was slow to react to the coronavirus in that way, because the first coronavirus was located on 8th of March. I think the first death was on 18th of March. So we were still in the, in a pensive mood or pondering mood or hesitant mood till the early end March and early April. So I think we could have responded to it much earlier with more intent and more force and with more clarity in this case. But otherwise, the government has rolled out its incentive package not badly. But whether those incentive package really worked at the or effectively implemented or not, that's a different question altogether. Because then, as I mentioned, that the banking sector has its own weaknesses, and they may not like to give that money to somebody because they will never get that money back. So who exactly is going to guarantee those kind of things, even with a subsidized interest rate? Those issues are very much there in the mind of the bankers and etc. What is important here to note two things. One is the government used the monetary policy first more than the fiscal policies. That it used the banking sector first much more extensively, and printing money for that matter. So then, in terms of spending money from its own exchequer, but the spending money from the own exchequer, it was difficult because our tax GDP ratio is very low, so we do not collect enough domestic resources in order to spend to disburse by the government. So that was a major problem. The second one was that the initial, since it was a monetary policy, it was instant interest subsidy, it was more directed towards the enterprises, toward the private sector, not towards the left behind people, not to the disadvantaged people. That came much later in that way. That may be the second criticism one can talk about. I hope this is being corrected as we move. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And normally we do not get much appreciations from the voice of the economist, but luckily we're getting a lot of appreciations and acknowledgement from you on the government.
No, this is not a question of this is sometimes it's not a question of appreciation or criticism. I look at it whether we put it on the basis of objective truth, on basis of data and other things. Mm-hmm. So whether they're good, they're in the right line, in the right direction. Could we do better? Yes, we could do better. And should we improve? Yes, we should improve. And from the point of view of that improvement, one would really like to look at the things. Sometimes, in Bangladesh and elsewhere, they could talk about these things as the dilemma of the glass half full or half empty. Yeah. So that is a dilemma in that way. Some emphasize the half full part, some emphasize on the half empty part. Yeah. So but does that mean that a half empty, those who emphasize the half empty, they're being negative? I don't think so. They're getting negative. I think they're more aspirational. They want more. I think that is the unfulfilled aspiration is really expressed through that. And those who say that is half full and emphasizes on that, they're just being too patriotic and too protective about our country. I believe my country can take much more criticism than we anticipate, because we are a resilient country. We have a history and we have a future. So in that sense, I don't feel at all insecure to make any criticism about my country. That doesn't make neither my country small, nor it undermines our achievement in certain ways.
True, rightly said. And also, the environment is favoring you to express your feeling, express your thinking as well. Now, so we're almost in the end part, but I've just only a few questions to ask you. If you can kindly share with our audience, please. What do you reckon, if I ask you to evaluate Bangladesh government's overall governance system in the last 12 years, How would you like to evaluate shortly?
I think the government, when it came to power in 2010, this is, I have said that I'm on record on this, that the first 3 years we saw more enthusiasm, more spirit, more dynamism in terms of reforms. You remember the government came with a charter, a vision document, and my center, our Center for Policy Dialogue, we prepared a vision document prior to that, which had has a lot to do with the second one, the political one. The issue is that that was a moment of high hopes and etc. Somehow it got dissipated down the line. So what is important now for us is to gain back the energy in the post-COVID state, to go back to those roots and find what are the reforms we should have done and we didn't do. Whether it starts with generating more money for our government, because if you really have 6 or to 8% growth, you cannot have an ailing tax collection system which does not give you more than 10% of the GDP. So either your numbers are not correct, or you're failing to, or your system is weak. We didn't really know how to spend our money, the impact of the public expenditure of so much of that, whether it's really benefiting the people or not. We need to assess that. It is not just spending money, but to get good value for money. Similarly, if you look at the banking, any economy has two lungs, and I call that two lungs are that one is your banking sector, the debt market, another is your capital market, the stock market. So if these two lungs are not really functioning properly, how the economy is going to be? So we have these two ailing lungs with us. We need to treat them in the right way. You look at the world and you see that if you want to develop and diversify and you want to empower people, you need to strengthen your local government. Our local government system is pretty weak, and there are also corruptions and other issues. So we need to strengthen the local government system with real participation of the people and accountability. I can go on with the list. And this is, and not to say that how our port is working, how our airports are working, or rather not working, and how our customs are dealing with it. So all these areas demands reforms. All these areas demand new structures and new rules and regulation for a new Bangladesh. It's like, I compare it like this. You have a 777 aircraft on the runway, and it is really riveting, and all of a sudden it finds it cannot take off because the runway has run out. Your runway is short. So Bangladesh is like that at this moment. So it has high potential to take off. It's like a 777 aircraft, or a Dreamliner for that matter. But we have not given them an adequate length of runway to do that takeoff. That is the challenge, to create that runway in front of us.
Dr. Debapriya, just consider that this program will be watched by our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. If it is so, what are the 3 suggestions or requests that you'd like to make to her for the better Bangladesh right now and for upcoming future?
No, if right now it is the COVID. Right now it is the COVID issue, as you know. So the first and foremost is to strengthen the health system and to deal with this this whole pandemic. So this has revealed all our structural problems in the health system. The public health system has to be strengthened and put to the right use to the people. We do have number of plans and programs for that. 2 big projects, one supported by World Bank, one by the ADB, Asian Development Bank. They're coming into force. So, and for the Prime Minister, her dream project had been the community clinics. So unfortunately, the community clinics did not come into use during this pandemic. So my first request would be to look at the public health system and to protect our general people from not only from this pandemic, but also non-communicable diseases and other issues over there. This is the first one. The second one is the issue is that this pandemic is going to create a lot of unemployment. Even those who had been employed either part-time or part-time or in the informal sector or without a contract and etc. So they will be losing. So we are going to see a new form of unemployment or vulnerability within the situation, and in informality, the new vulnerability. So this can be anything between 2 to 3 crores of people. Additional 20 to 30 million people without job is a hell of a challenge for any government, even in a normal time, not only to say in a slack period. So thinking of a new employment strategy will be an important one, particularly for these new kids coming out from the university fresh, and they are not being able to sustain themselves because of the COVID. They used to do that by, tutoring at homes and etc. Those sources of incomes are closed, and those houses are closed in many ways because the head of that family may have lost the job. So it's a very critical situation. So the second part is to take the issue of employment very, very seriously in that way. And the third issue would be the world is changing, and Bangladesh is a globalized economy. And the two major hits we are going to take is one is from the export fall of our garment sector and the return of our migrant workers. And the migrant workers in huge number will be coming back soon as the air traffic challenge starts. Already we are seeing that our Bangladeshi migrant workers are sent back from the Middle East by chartered flights. So this is an important thing. How do we, and then of course the foreign direct investment issue is over there. So how in the changed world we are going to realign ourselves, our foreign economic relationship, and with being located between two big growing economy, I call them Chindia, China and India, Chindia, and Bangladesh in between, to be the bridge of this to how do we use it to our advantage in the future. So the health, employment, and strategic integration with the world.
Fair enough. I believe.
Thank you.
I believe. Yeah, I'm going to end up. So, if you can just share with us, how's your feelings of today's show? How did you feel? Honestly speaking, how did you feel?
Yes, thank you. I am very pleased that we could talk, that you created that opportunity. I appreciate that. I wish you success, that you take this as a mission and take it forward. Both because this is both informative and also socially connecting. I think in these days when we are really locked up in our rooms, but these are the small windows through which we take our fresh airs. And thank you for that. I wish through you the best of luck, all the good things to my fellow countrymen spread all over the world. And please do keep our favorite motherland in your mind. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With Dr. Debapriya, we are going to end up our episode now. Looking forward to see you again with another guest, with another new episode. Thank you. Thank you all. Take care. Bye-bye. Channel 20 TV দয়া করে আমাদের ইউটিউব চ্যানেল লাইক এবং সাবস্ক্রাইব করুন প্লিজ লাইক এন্ড সাবস্ক্রাইব আস ইন ইউটিউব Channel 20 TV দয়া করে আমাদের ফেসবুক পেজ লাইক এবং ফলো করুন প্লিজ লাইক এন্ড ফলো আস ইন ফেসবুক পেজ